Now, what types of evidence are there? Because you kind of mentioned a few of them. Like, there are specific kinds of evidence, and I always thought it was like circumstantial and physical. Those are the two that I know of from watching shows. Mm-hmm. What other kind of evidence is there?
Sure. Sure. So, you have physical evidence, and you can break that into trace evidence, biological evidence, impression evidence.
What's impression? What's impression?
Impression is like you walk through sand and
footprint.
Yeah, right. Or somebody hits a hammer through your drywall. That's an impression.
Sure.
And then you have direct evidence, which is really your video feeds, your photos, anything, eyewitness testimony, anything that directly shows that thing going on, which we have so much of that now.
It's Big Brother. It's 1984. Yeah. Everybody's watching everything. But so in the Rodney King court case, that video that the guy took of the beating would be considered what kind of evidence?
Direct evidence.
That's direct evidence.
Direct evidence.
Which meant nothing at the time.
I know.
So it's a whole other. It's not your job to. It's not your job. It's not your job to judge the evidence. You just have to present the evidence.
Exactly. Forensics is science applied to the law. All we have to do is apply the science, and then the legal system hopefully takes care of the rest.
All right. So what other kind of evidences are there?
So we did. We did direct, we did physical, and then there's circumstantial, which is really the gray area of evidence, and actually where I think story can live very nicely.
Okay.
Because, and it hasn't. Have you seen 7 Seconds? It's a show on Netflix. It's a limited series on Netflix. It's a crime series set in New York City. So much circumstantial evidence. So it's all about, you look at what happened and you try to piece together like a dotted line. So it's like if somebody broke into your studio, you weren't there, let's say you leave your studio, everything's perfect the way it is. You got your nice stools and your pillows
and my Yoda.
Yes, yeah. Yoda, everything's perfect, right? Your pictures. You leave for 2 hours, go to the Trader Joe's, you come back, your stools are tossed across the room, your pictures are off the wall and broken, your Yodas are all smashed up or maybe missing. Maybe your Yodas are missing and your equipment's missing. What can you assume happened while you were gone?
That someone broke in. And generally speaking, someone broke in and was searching for something, or actually there was some theft involved. That's one case scenario. Another case scenario is an ex-girlfriend from 30 years ago has found me and just wants to ruin my life.
Exactly.
I don't have one of those, but just, so for this case, for the state of the podcast. 3, my uncle came home and he was drunk. Like I don't have a drunk uncle, but that's another. So there's many scenarios, but the first place you go to was foul play or someone tried to break in and steal, right?
Right. Another option is you got drugged, you came home and you did it yourself, and then you woke up and, there's so many.
There's thousands.
There's thousands of great story options, but the point is you look at what happened and you say, what are the circumstances that are possible in here? And then you start to talk to people like, okay, so did you have an ex-girlfriend? Did you have a drunk uncle? Did somebody drug your drink while you were in the Trader Joe's? All these
the little coffee.
Exactly.
That free coffee you get at Trader Joe's.
It really wasn't creamer.
Brutal. I'll never drink Trader Joe's coffee again.
What is in the agave syrup?
We're writing shows right here as we speak. We're literally writing shows. The Trader Joe's shows.
It was murder. Yeah.
Jeez, that's insane.
So circumstantial is where you're looking at the things that happen and trying to piece together a dotted line that leads to the truth.
And that's basically why there's so much of that in cinema and in television, because of and even also in novels and things like that, because that's where it's a gray area. So you really like literally you threw a scenario. I threw out 3 possible scenarios, and you could have started and we could have literally had 20 or 30
Yeah.
Oh, it's the ex-girlfriend. Oh, it was the daughter. Oh, it was the butler that did it in the with the candlestick. Yeah, exactly. So there's so many, but then forensics would come into that scenario, and then like, okay, let's see what evidence has been left behind. So maybe there's some blood left over, or some sweat, or things like that from, and then like, who has access to this place? Oh, okay, well, it's this and that.
Exactly.
I'm speaking purely from watching shows for the last 20 odd years. That's how I'm even able to even have this conversation with you. It's purely from watching so many of these shows. Just like, well, there's this and there's this option, and then this could happen, and this. It's funny, like, but seriously, like, you're like a forensic specialist, and I'm literally having a conversation. I'm not by any stretch am I an expert, but at least I could have a conversation with you. Like, oh well. DNA, it could have been blood, it could have been sweat, it could have been spit, a hair follicle could have been left behind.
Soil from the shoe, maybe somebody's shoe left a piece of dirt.
Yeah, and where is that soil? Well, it's what is it from? I see Beverly Hills Cop 2. Like, the shoes, they have mud on it. Where's the mud from? The oil fields. Well, he used to jog over at the oil fields. That's where he's at, and all these things, and this is like literally decades of information that gets flown into your head as a writer of all these shows and all these experiences that you start throwing in there. It is fascinating, and it's really fun.
Fascinating.
It is fun to write this stuff.
Right. And what you just did with that's okay. That's how we do it. We're storytellers, and so what you just did with the shoe to the jogging to the oil, that's physical evidence, physical trace evidence, and you made a circumstantial jump to the oil fields. That's perfect. That's now you're building a trail of evidence. That's awesome.